Imagine a political conflict so inflamed, so utterly beyond reasoned debate, that the only recourse seems to be direct, physical action. Imagine grabbing your opponents, dragging them to an open window, and throwing them out. Not as a turn of phrase, as a literal act of political expulsion, this extreme measure, known as defenestration, became an almost unimaginable, recurring feature in the history of one European city, Prague. Here, in the heart of the Kingdom of Bohemia, throwing adversaries from windows became a grim, repeated climax to centuries of turmoil. Our story begins in the early 15th century. Bohemia simmered with religious dissent. The teachings of Jan Hus, a church reformer who condemned corruption and advocated for communion in both kinds, bread and wine for all, had captivated much of the population. Hus challenged the established church, questioning its wealth and the ultimate authority of the Pope. For this, he was declared a heretic. Despite guarantees of safe passage, the Council of Constance condemned him, and in 1415, Jan Hus was burned at the stake. His death did not quench the movement he inspired. Instead, it forged him into a martyr, igniting the Hussite cause across Bohemia. Prague became the volatile epicenter. The Hussites were not unified. They ranged from moderate nobles seeking reform to radical factions demanding societal upheaval. Caught in the middle was King Wenceslaus IV, weak and vacillating, unable to satisfy the Church, the Holy Roman Emperor, or his increasingly defiant Hussite subjects. His indecision only worsened the crisis. Into this charged atmosphere stepped Jan Żelivski. A former monk turned fiery Hussite preacher, Żelivski commanded attention from his pulpit in Prague's New Town. He passionately denounced the Catholic elites and the town council members who opposed Hussite reforms, urging his followers toward direct confrontation. The immediate catalyst came when the new town council suppressed Hussite practices and jailed several Hussites. On the 30th of July, 1419, Żelivski led a large armed procession from his church. Critically, they carried the consecrated host, the bread believed to embody Christ, signifying they acted with divine purpose. Their target was the new town hall on Charles Square. Their demand, the release of the Hussite prisoners. What unfolded next became the foundation of Prague's dark legend. As the procession confronted the councillors, tensions snapped. The precise trigger remains debated. Perhaps a stone thrown from the town hall window struck the sacred host, an ultimate sacrilege in the eyes of the marchers. Or perhaps insults were hurled by the officials within. Whatever the spark, the crowd's fury was unleashed. They stormed the new town hall, overwhelming the guards. Within their ranks was Jan Žižka, soon to become a renowned Hussite military leader. The mob seized the judge, the burgomaster, and numerous town councillors. Sources suggest between 7 and 15 officials. Then came the act that would echo through centuries. One by one, the captured men were thrown from the high windows of the hall. Their ordeal, however, did not end with the fall. Below, the enraged crowd waited, meeting the falling bodies with pikes and swords, ensuring a brutal and public end. This was Prague's first defenestration, a visceral, violent rejection of authority. News of the event is said to have profoundly shocked King Wenceslaus IV. He died just 16 days later, some chronicles attributing his death directly to the shock. With the king gone, Bohemia plunged headlong into the Hussite Wars, a devastating conflict that would tear the kingdom apart for nearly 2 decades. Jan Żelivski himself would enjoy only a brief period of power before being executed. The cycle of violence had begun, and a terrible precedent had been set. One might assume such a brutal act was unique, a singular outburst of medieval fury. Yet, incredibly, Prague would witness it again. Fast forward 64 years to the 24th of September, 1483. Religious divisions persisted, now primarily between the Utrechtist Hussites and Catholics under King Vladislaus II. Fearing a Catholic power grab and the erosion of their hard-won rights, Hussite factions launched a violent, coordinated coup across Prague. In the Old Town, the burgomaster was seized and hurled from the Old Town Hall window. Meanwhile, at the New Town Hall, the very same building that saw the horror of 1,419 7 Catholic councillors were slain, their bodies then tossed from the windows. This second defenestration, though less renowned, had a curious outcome. Unlike the first, which ignited war, this spasm of violence paradoxically paved the way for the Peace of Kutná Hora in 1485. This agreement formally recognized both Catholic and Utrechtist faiths, ushering in a period of uneasy religious coexistence in Bohemia. But the underlying tensions merely lay dormant, awaiting a new catalyst. That catalyst arrived nearly 135 years later, leading to the third, and by far the most famous, Defenestration of Prague. The date was May 23, 1618. By the early 17th century, Bohemia, though predominantly Protestant, found itself under the rule of the staunchly Catholic Habsburg dynasty. Emperor Matthias and his heir apparent, the fervent Ferdinand, aggressively pursued the Counter-Reformation, aiming to curtail Protestant influence. The flashpoint became the Letter of Majesty, a crucial decree issued in 1609 that guaranteed religious freedom to Bohemian Protestants, including the right to build churches on crown lands. Ferdinand and his loyal Catholic officials viewed this document as an intolerable obstacle. They began interpreting it narrowly, ordering a halt to Protestant church construction in Brumov and the demolition of another church in Hrob. To the Protestant Bohemian estates, the assembly of nobles and representatives, this was an unacceptable breach of their guaranteed rights. Outraged, they resolved on confrontation. On that fateful May morning, a large contingent of armed Protestant nobles, led by Count Thurn, ascended to Prague Castle. They marched into the Bohemian Chancellery office. There, they confronted two imperial regents, known for their unwavering Catholicism and loyalty to Ferdinand, Vilém Slavata and Jaroslav Božita of Martinice. After a tense, heated argument, the nobles declared Slavata and Martinice guilty of violating the Letter of Majesty. Then came the defining moment. The regents were seized and propelled out of the chancery window, followed swiftly by their secretary, Philip Fabricius. They plummeted some 70 feet, roughly 21 meters, towards the ground below. But here, history took a truly astonishing turn. All three men survived the fall. This seemingly miraculous event instantly became fuel for intense propaganda. Catholics proclaimed it divine intervention, proof of God's favor. Protestants offered a more grounded explanation. The men landed in a substantial pile of manure, and refuse accumulated in the dry moat, cushioning their impact. Their heavy cloaks may also have played a part. The secretary, Fabricius, agile despite his ordeal, escaped to Vienna to report the incident. He was later rewarded by the emperor with a distinctly appropriate title, Baron von Hohenfall, Baron of Highfall. While the survival was remarkable, the act itself irrevocably crossed a line. This third defenestration ignited the Bohemian Revolt, the opening act of the catastrophic 30 Years' War, a conflict that would engulf Europe in flames for 3 decades. But why windows? And why did this specific form of political violence take root so persistently in Prague? To be ejected from a window, particularly from a seat of power like the castle or town hall, is a powerfully symbolic act. It represents utter rejection, profound humiliation, and a brutal form of summary justice when official channels are perceived as blocked or corrupt. It is a public spectacle, designed to send a terrifying and unambiguous message. Prague itself provided the perfect stage. As the capital of Bohemia, and at times the heart of the Holy Roman Empire, it was an unavoidable crucible for conflict, a crossroads of Czech and German cultures, and a battleground for Catholic, Hussite, and Protestant faiths. Perhaps the first, shocking defenestration of 1419 inadvertently created a grim historical script. Did later generations, facing moments of extreme crisis, recall this precedent? Significantly, the very term defenestration, derived from the Latin de for out of and fenestra for window, achieved widespread recognition, largely due to these specific Prague incidents. Even into the modern era, the suspicious 1948 death of Jan Masaryk, found below his ministry window, carries unsettling echoes of this dark tradition. These events were not mere historical oddities. They were violent eruptions born from deep societal fault lines, leading to consequences as vast as major European wars, forever linking the act of defenestration with the city of Prague.